Hi, everybody. As we begin our World War II unit, one of the first things we're going to look at is German aggression. But before we do, we're really going to kind of set up the table for the conditions that led to Germans' aggression. So I'd like to kind of remind everybody of the last unit we studied, which was the Great Depression and New Deal. As you know, because of the Smoot-Hawley tariff, the United States was not the only country that had severe economic problems. Britain, France, Germany, again, most of the world, because of those high tariffs placed on every country against each country, had severe economic problems. We, in 1933, I take that back, in November of 1932, elected FDR because he said he was going to roll up his sleeves and try these programs and have an expansion of the federal government like we've never seen it before. He's going to try things. Other countries kind of went in different directions, of course. Though this is not topical, it really happened during World War II. I take that back in the middle of World War I when Russia got out of World War I. Again, they were having an economic crisis. The Tsar was overthrown. They had a temporary government, and that temporary government was overthrown. And they set up a communist system. Again, people don't, tend to be in favor of communism when there's an economic boom. There's rich people and middle class is doing well. Nobody's saying, please, let's share our wealth then. It's only during economic problems or crises do people who are middle class and lower class begin to see the benefits of sharing their wealth. So that's why Russia went in that direction. But also dictatorships pop up in Italy, Spain, and Germany, and we're going to be kind of running over that. Since this isn't like a world history class, we're going to be focusing on the United States efforts here, but we still have to show some context a little bit. The rise of Nazi Germany, again, is similar to the United States. Hitler takes power within weeks of FDR. So there's a separation of weeks between Germany and the United States of somebody new running the country. So I'd like to kind of reinforce some key points. Oftentimes when you are running for election, you are going to be telling the people it's not your fault, this plight of yours that you find yourselves in. So he's speaking to all of Germany, that the loss in World War I wasn't your fault. It was the Weimar Republic, the democratically elected government that signed the armistice. They were to blame for the war reparations and the war guilt clause. It wasn't your fault. He's also going to blame communists that want to take down Germany and do the same thing they did in Russia and the Soviet Union, which was, share the wealth. And of course, he's going to blame a group of people called the Jews, and basically saying your lot in life, Germany, is not your fault. It's the Jewish people have done this. And then you feel better about it because it's not your fault, and you're like, oh yeah, great. How does Hitler silence his opponents in an authoritarian way? Of course, he sets up a secret police. He kills his opposition, especially early on when he was, in the Nazi Party. As it got stronger and bigger, the people who helped that party get bigger became a threat to him, a threat to his power. So he eliminated those people. There was censorship, thought control. So to improve the economy, he builds up the military, public works projects. Again, he's not supposed to be building up the military, but again, it puts people to work. Very similar to FDR's New Deal. And since people are back to work, they start feeling good about what's going on because they have money. So the economy starts kind of picking up, and people are like, wow, Hitler knows what he's doing. As he gets power, Spain has a civil war. So on one side you have the army, and the leader of that army, Franco, General Franco, is fighting the actual government, democratically elected government. The Republicans, the government asks USSR for the Soviet Union for help. Franco then asks Germany and Italy for military help. And basically what this allows Germany and Germany and Italy, and again, most specifically Germany, is to kind of use Spain as a spring training game, an exhibition game for their new military, their tactics and their new machines, their dive bombers, their tanks. So it's beneficial for them. And that's the Spanish Civil War. Germany gets aggressive. The first phase is going to be March of 1936. I don't know if you remember some of the specifics, but after World War I, the French wanted a buffer zone between France and Germany. So the Rhineland, which was they had to give up and demilitarize in the Treaty of Versailles in World War I, Germany decides to send in troops. Hitler basically said, and he did this he sent troops in there against the will of his generals. And he basically said that, my general said I shouldn't do this. Nobody thought I should do this. Nobody thought we were going to be successful. And we did. We just put in our troops and it went fine. So he really begins to think of himself as a military mastermind because of this. And he also said that if they were stopped, they were just to retreat. But France did not stop them. Then again, France didn't have any troops in there either. So if you want, you can always pause this PowerPoint and read these captions over to the right. Germany gets aggressive again. The second part is that in 1938 they have a union, Austria and Germany, and we call that the Anschluss. Over to the left you see some Nazis forcing some Jewish people to scrub the sidewalks just because they can. The lower picture is Hitler in the Reichstag, which would be like the House of Representatives, and everybody giving him a salute. Again, you can read these captions, but again, it's pictures of the time. Feel free to pause and read those, please. And that is Mussolini on the left of Italy. And then how do other countries respond to this aggression of the Rhineland and Austria? They don't like it, but there's not much they can do. Are you willing to go to war with Germany to force him to give those lands back? The Austria, they speak the same language. Culturally, they are very similar to Germany. So there was a reason. But appeasement is making concessions to an aggressor to preserve peace. So if you think about it, many of these World War I veterans that we just studied, add 20 years, and if they were 20 or 30, they are now 40 or 50. They are in the government. Not all of them, but if they were important in the war, they are now, probably in the government. They don't want to fight. They saw the horrors of World War I, and they are not itching to go to war. As opposed to the, Britain and France, again, pacifism is that refusal to fight was strong in both Britain and France. Not only in the government, but the people as well. And then you have the United States. They're just isolationists. They're an ocean away. They don't want any part of this. And then they don't stop here. If you recall, the Treaty of Versailles made up new countries, and it's so hard to make up new countries based on where people live. There is a country called Czechoslovakia, and there is a ring around this oblong-shaped country called Czechoslovakia, and this is called the Sudetenland. And since it's like living in, Iowa, but close to Illinois. You might live in Iowa, but have a job in Illinois. So a boundary is important, but it's not really the end of the world. So Czechoslovakia wasn't this border from Czechoslovakia and Germany. Some Germans lived on that other side of the border that were German, and now they're living in Czechoslovakia. That land was called the Sudetenland, and Germany took over the Sudetenland only because, well, he wanted to reunite the German people. They don't stop there. It was a big deal. A lot of people were upset about this. There was a big meeting between the Great Britain Prime Minister Chamberlain, and he went to Germany, which was a big deal when, you know, your foe comes to you. That's a sign of weakness. And he comes back with a signed piece of paper saying that's all he wants. He does not want the rest of Czechoslovakia. We have what is called peace in our time. And then 6 months later, he actually takes the rest of Czechoslovakia. And of course, Chamberlain's embarrassed. He resigns as prime minister, and the next prime minister of Britain is called Winston Churchill. France and Great Britain both realize they cannot use the policy of pacifism anymore after he invades the rest of Czechoslovakia. And now both Germany and Great Britain want to ally themselves with the Soviet Union, not unlike prior to World War I. I don't know if you can see this little line here, this staggered line like this. That is the Sudetenland. A lot of Germans living in here, so that gave them the pretext to take the Sudetenland. And then 6 months later, of course, they take everything. Here's the Rhineland, Austria, the Anschluss, Sudetenland, Czechoslovakia. So now he's taken some serious land here, and people are obviously starting to take notice. Great Britain and France are kind of worried now. Who will win the Soviet Union? As you see here, stunning the world, we have the Nazi-Soviet pact. Germany wins the sweepstakes for the Soviet Union and promises not to go to war with each other. If you look at this, if Germany wants to go east into Poland, that is a strategic decision. But if you move into Poland, that might freak out the Soviet Union. Oh my gosh, we're next, or should we invade to fight Germany and keep them off guard? So not only is that a worry to Germany if they invade, they might have a bigger struggle against the Soviet Union. But Soviet Union is worried that if they invade Poland, are we next? So we might want to fight right now. So that's why the Nazi-Soviet pact, a reason for both sides. So now Germany can invade Poland without scaring the Soviets into a fight, and Germany is basically warned by Britain, invade Poland and it's war. So we have aggression by Germany, we have appeasement by France and Germany, and of course there's the smell of war in the air because of that. Does Germany go too far? On September 1st, 1939, Germany invades Poland, and we note that date as the beginning of World War II. Germany and Russia split Poland. We now know this, but we didn't know it then. When they signed the Nazi-Soviet pact, they basically said they were going to split Poland. France and, of course, Great Britain declare war on Germany, and that is the beginning of World War II. And as you can see, this ginormous machine called the Nazi Third Reich of Germany going through right here, Poland, and the caption says "End of Act 1," meaning it is just beginning. So again, we have 6 phases of Nazi aggression, and the last one is the beginning act of World War I. So what we saw today in this little video is a summary of Germany, Spain, Italy, and Soviet Union after the Great Depression. Each country handled those economic crises different. We see a rise of Germany with their aggression into the Rhineland, into Austria, which is called the Anschluss, into the Sudetenland, and then the rest of Czechoslovakia 6 months later. And then the invasion of Poland after the Nazi-Soviet pact, where they agree to split Poland in half, each getting that half. Tomorrow we'll look a little bit deeper into World War I.